Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's see what happens on the show and see what we think of it as we watch.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
I'm feeling fantastic. I wanted to check in with you.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, like, if there was anything on your mind.
I've just never been 100% with something like this, ever.
Okay, so it's edited. I think they took something out there, but the way it's edited, it's not the most romantic thing to say in this one. I think they both know he's going to propose. They both have those kind of outfits on, I think. But she says, I've never been 100%. And yeah, I mean, maybe Stacy's just being really honest and is just saying, this is really scary for me, and I am still kind of holding out. And of course, she would be rational and healthy to say, yes, I am absolutely willing to go to the next step with you. But at least in her head, she would be thinking, but we'll see how it works out when we're in person, because there's a lot of interaction that is different than the pods when we're, after the pods. There's a lot of interaction with each other. And so I'll find out. And so I'm not 100% based on that, which of course would be totally normal. Or is she saying, I don't really feel the magic. I don't feel that drive and that impulse and that compulsion to be with you. And then if that's what she's saying, then maybe she's thinking, but it'll grow, or I don't know if you're the right one for me or something. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
This is home, and I feel like this is where I belong. I've never been more certain with anybody in my life.
I feel the same way.
He seems to be okay with it. Certainly from the outside, it doesn't look very reciprocal or equal or secure or fair. But if they're enjoying it, who are we to judge? Not the most romantic thing to say. Someone's like, this long. It'd be like being when they are if they make it to the altar, he can have this long, very flowery vow of like, I love you, da, da, da. And she's like, yeah, ditto. Anyway, what's next? But yeah, like I said, we can't judge. They can have whatever relationships they want to have. And I think maybe more commonly we would see this in the form of, say, you have someone that is just very extroverted and very wordy, and they have a partner that is introverted and less wordy. Maybe not weddings or proposals, but there could be conversations of romance or meaning of planning or dedication to each other, and one person is more wordy and the other person is less. Am I describing my own marriage? Probably. I've never had that complaint, really. She might have that complaint of like, too many words, Kirk. She never says that, which is impossible for her. It's impossible for her not to have thought that, but I don't think I've ever heard her say, you talk too much. And I don't know if I talk, beyond a certain threshold. At least I hope I don't. But yeah, for me and Stacy, if there's a conversation along these lines, I'm going to talk a lot, and at least a lot more than she will talk. And I don't mind that, and I don't know if she minds that about me. At least, so I guess I'm in his shoes, not to that extent, but in that direction. And so I'm an example of that. Of it. It doesn't. I don't interpret that as a lack of love and dedication. I just interpret that as she's a woman of few words, and she packs a lot into a small space, or she's just not extremely verbal. She loves by other means, through loyalty and consideration and eye contact and quality time spent. So from our standpoint, we're like, uh-oh, or, ooh, Stacy, you jerk face. But from our standpoint, we don't know that. We don't know their preferences. Plus, we were seeing an edited version is the thing. I suspect she said more than that. I hope she said more than that. And maybe in the midst of all that, she said those things.
I own for however long, just because I kind of gave up on the fairy tale, and that's exactly what I found with you. And it's just the corniest, craziest, what the fuck I could have ever expected, but...
Okay, I was on the fence in the beginning of her talk here, but yeah, it's so Stacy. And if she were in love and were very attracted, if she was in love with him the way that we would hope that he would have a partner that would be in love with him at that amount, then that's what Stacy would say. That's what that Stacy, not my Stacy, but that Stacy. And because if she had all the flowery language, you'd be like, is she faking it? So she has to be her, and that's the way she would say it, and using that tone of voice. And so that makes me feel better for Izzy, that she is exhibiting that she seemingly has like legit fairy tale love for him. So it's we'll see if it lasts, but at least at this phase, it's nice to see reciprocation. I mean, I'm kind of reminded of Cam and Lauren. I mean, they weren't this exaggerated, but Cam was, and I think he would admit, maybe he did admit, that he's very corny and very over the top. And Lauren was there for it, but wouldn't reciprocate that amount of corny over the topness. So, and they seem to be doing fine. One of the very first OG couples on the show. I assume they're still together. I assume I would have heard if they had broken up. So, there's different styles of relationships.
Of course, 100%.
On the other hand, there's a possibility that for Izzy, he isn't seeing what we're seeing, or it doesn't even literally exist because they're editing it funny. And if that's true, then he might be in denial because he needs this to be true, or he's just not great at detecting what's going on in other people, maybe due to his upbringing, who knows. I keep trying to figure out if his upbringing had any effect on what we're seeing right now, and I don't see anything. I just figure it must be there. But of course, all these folks have very complicated histories that are obscured to us. So just because I know one detail about his history doesn't mean that I can explain his behavior currently. But anyway, there's a chance that he's blind to these sort of things because he needs to be, or he's used to being mistreated. He doesn't believe he deserves more. But it doesn't look like that to me. And I'm going to assume that behind the scenes, that's not including the edit, there's just a lot more evidence of her loving him and exhibiting care and empathy. I'm just going to assume that that's there.
My heart is like not just beating out of my chest, it's just hot. I can't even describe it. It's fucking crazy. I've never known more than anything that this is right and that you're the one.
Okay, that's flowery. That's the flowery language. So she delivered in the end. She just had some suspenseful pauses there.
Smile. I'm a fiance. I'm like, oh my God.
Are you so happy?
Oh, that's rough for Johnie, I think in particular. But yeah, wow, that would be rough. I know it's normalized on the show, but yeah, that'd be rough. And we are seeing that, at least in the edit, she's there. Why can't they just go home? Well, no, because Johnie might get with Chris, so she has to stick around.
We're happy for you.
Just you put so much into it. I know. I'm just trying to get there, and it just feels so good.
Okay, so more evidence that she is feeling it, and it's legit and it's genuine. It's not a guarantee. You could have emotions just because it feels like you've crossed the finish line of some sort without necessarily caring about the race. But anyway, it's evidence, stuff we haven't seen, or at least I didn't see in this to this effect before.
Like, haven't even had a chance to cry about it. Because you walk out into a lounge and you're immediately faced with his future fiance. It's like, how do you process?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was observing that both times that she was being dumped or rejected from Izzy, she came back into the lounge and was not exhibiting sadness. Eventually she did when the good Aaliyah reached out, was like, hey, how are you feeling? But even those tears were pushing through a barrier that she, I think, reinitiated with. And then she's now saying why she was holding back, because her competition was there. Yeah, I imagine there's some sort of history there for her. And of course, it's rational to be in competition and angry. It's not a good look, but I worry that people won't like Johnie because of her, I don't know what you call it, vindictiveness or bitterness towards Stacy. But, it's normal. Just imagine your current partner dumps you. I mean, it's more severe because presumably you've been with your current partner for longer, but it's the same emotion. Imagine your current partner dumps you and tells you, I'm dumping you for this other person that one of your friends. I'm in love with her, and so I don't want to be with you. I want to be with her. And then and he leaves, and you walk into another room, and your friend is there. It's complicated, right? It's not going to feel good. Now, for Johnie, she wasn't betrayed in that way, right? But the same kind of feelings would be there. And I think there's different ways of dealing with it. For others, we've seen where they will cry. Men and women on the show will cry in front of their competitor. We've seen that before. So it's not unheard of, but that's why I just wonder about Johnny's history. I'm really curious about Johnie and Lydia's history, but I think more Johnie, honestly, because she reminds me of a lot of clients that I've worked with, actually. I think, in terms of the little bit that we've seen. And, of course, I've had a lot of compassion with those clients and heard the deep, specific story that these individuals had that really did inform their current behavior, and it just feels satisfying to me. It's one of the big reasons why I got into psychology, was for that satisfaction. It feels like being a loving detective, an altruistic detective. You're trying to discover for someone else's benefit, right? That's how it feels to me, and so I have that impulse with her. I just really want to know, and I'm guessing I won't find out, particularly if she doesn't go on to the next phase, because then we won't hear from her ever again.
How you're feeling in that situation, just processing the pain.
But I am glad that she's able to have these feelings, because I was wondering if they were unavailable to her entirely, but they're not. They're available under the right circumstances. So, yeah.
Let myself feel it and mourn it and move on.
The process worked out differently than I thought, but Izzy told me he had a bad credit score. He just signed a lease somewhere else. He doesn't seem ready for commitment.
Yikes. So presumably she's had time to regulate, and she doesn't seem dysregulated. Earlier, just coming out of the pods, being rejected, you're dysregulated. You're going to have some anomalous behaviors and impulses. I don't think she's in that state right now. I think it's been a while, and maybe even another day. And she is even going further down that road of speaking across the room to someone and really grasping at straws there, right? Just he has a bad credit score and he just leased something. Therefore, he's not ready for commitment to Stacy, to anybody. That's quite a leap. Also, just trying to demean him to others, trying to tear him down, trying to make him look bad, trying to spread rumors. Yikes.
He's not ready to be actually vulnerable. So, and I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he ran, so that's fine. We'll see.
It was actually a perfect timing for him to run.
Yeah.
Because you had that time to realize and to talk to the other person, and make your connection again. Or
That's true.
Yeah. So the friend is like, well, so that's a good thing, right? Because you're in love with Chris, right? Right? Isn't that the whole story here? So we're glad that he ran, right? Yeah. We see a lot of bad on the spectrum of good to bad. We see a lot of behavior on these shows that are on the bad side of the spectrum. I personally don't consider what Johnie has done to be that far into the bad. And this is, like I said, the first time where it's kind of put to the test. I think she's had time to think and regulate, and she's presumably committed or trying to get Chris to commit and propose to her, and yet she's still on this warpath. And so she, this is the first kind of indication of like, okay, I think we're seeing a pattern. We can't really blame someone after just being dumped. There's a lot of different possibilities of making a mistake in that moment. But we're now seeing this, and I guess I worry that the internet will tear her apart because there's not really a villain, especially now that Stacy seems to have kind of redeemed herself, or the edit is such or something. I don't know, but and Stacy wasn't even that bad in the beginning. It just looked like it was going down different. And we haven't even seen from Lydia. They haven't even shown us this. They must be saving that, the Lydia and Aaliyah scene. And the viewership needs a villain. We have this tendency to look for villains when we watch these shows, and once we find them, then it's a scapegoat for us. We want to yell at someone, we want to judge someone, we want some drama, right? If everyone on this show were to be nice to each other and there was no conflict, it would just be boring. It would be watching people date in a boring way, right? That's not very interesting. So you need to have something happen, and we want it to happen, so we're looking for it. And by comparison, at least at this point, Johnie is really the only one that's exhibiting any kind of problem behavior. But when we match it up to other seasons like Micah and Irina, this is small potatoes, right? But maybe not. I don't know. It's just my gauge. But yeah, if Johnie were a friend of mine, I think I would be like, oof, this isn't good. What would I say? I think I'd just listen. I don't know. The older I get, the more I just say things that are on my mind. And I'd probably say something like, if she said this, well, if I was in my right mind, I would say, well, so where are you? Like, because that's really the question. Because there'd be initial impulse questions like what the friend said. It was like, well, it's good, right? Because you're now with Chris. But that would lead to another question of like, well, are you wanting to be with Chris? And I guess another, big picture question is, well, tell me how you feel about the fact that Izzy broke up with you. This is something that we don't typically do for adults, but therapists know to do this for adults. We typically know to do this for children. So an example is you are watching your 4-year-old play on the playground with other kids, and from afar you see your kid have a bad social interaction. Like there's a couple girls playing and your daughter walks up to them and tries to interact with them, maybe in kind of a forceful way, and the other kids are just like, they give your daughter the cold shoulder, and you watch that happen. It's not horrible, but you're like, oof, that's gotta hurt. And then your daughter comes over and says to you, I want to go home. I hate this playground. This is the stupidest. I never want to go to a playground ever again. So it doesn't take a genius to understand what's going on with that child, right? If you just listen verbatim, it doesn't make any sense because they love the playground. Or if you took it as verbatim. You're like, okay, fine. We'll never go to another. Let's go. We'll never go to another playground ever again. You oblige. You obey. Any good parent or any, I don't know, good human being would know that that's not the best answer, right? What's the big picture? Well, the picture is the kid is sad and feels rejected, and that's the thing you attend to. So how you do that as a parent, there's a lot of different options at that point, but you attend to it. Well, adults are the same way. We don't somehow, upon turning 18, turn into a completely different species. You don't go into the hospital and they take out your brain and put in an adult brain. You have the same brain. You have all the same emotions and tendencies and problems and snafus and foibles and defenses. And we do that exact same thing as adults. It just is more refined because we're older now and more sophisticated, and we have fancier words. So that's what she's doing. Johnie, was on the playground and two girls rejected her, named Izzy and Stacy, and she is now walking away saying, well, I hated them anyway. Those guys are jerk faces. I just walked up to them because I just wanted to tell them that they look stupid. That's why I walked up to them. Adults, we all do this. We all have the impulse to do it. And especially if you have a rough history that didn't allow you to mature and graduate to the next phase of life, and particularly if you have a lot of rejection in your life and a lot of pain and a lot of reasons to do anything you can to prop up any kind of self-esteem, then, because I'll remind y'all, and I'll remind myself of one of the first times we met Johnie. She was talking about how she, had some difficult relationships, and although she always had a dream of having a family and a husband and kids, her mom told her that maybe she shouldn't because of her bad track record with relationships, and she cried, and that it was you could really see it was pain. It wasn't just kind of like a little tear. It was a real bodily sadness that came out of her, because I was guessing that she agrees with that statement that her mom said to her, that whatever her mom said, it seemed to reveal that she believes there's a strong likelihood that she's doomed and broken and different from others, and she's hopeless. So, you have that going on for you. There's going to be a fair amount of need to try to salvage any sort of self-esteem, and that's the tragedy of childhood mistreatment, is mistreatment, which is awful. You go through mistreatment as a child, you're mistreated. It sticks with you as an adult, in all likelihood, and plagues you, and not only makes you continue, you internalize the abuser, and you end up through your own psyche berating yourself or harming yourself through lifestyle or something. And then your life and your decisions unconsciously create situations that cause more people and the world to mistreat you. It doesn't cause it. I mean, the other people are responsible for it, but it kind of sets up the fertile ground for that sort of thing to develop. And then you have more reasons to hate yourself, and more reasons to not go to people for support, and more reasons to try to use the defense to solve the problem. And it just goes on and on. Therapy helps with that, with a good therapist that you bond with, that understands the situation, long-term therapy. But without that, it's really hard to not have that happen. So that's what I see when I see her. If people hate her, and maybe she'll be a hateful, horrific person in the future, but I don't know. I don't like it when people on these shows are attacked. We all have our issues. They can be criticized, and she can be criticized. We could say, hey, Johnie, it's not okay. You probably should not say that. You probably shouldn't even be thinking it. Just move forward, and don't try to tear them down. They're on their own journey, and maybe things won't work out, and maybe you're right, but it's not fair to them. They're not attacking you. Izzy, really liked you, but ultimately he decided someone else. You knew that's what you were signing up for. that was the risk, and it happened, and it sucks. But he didn't do anything wrong, and Stacy didn't do anything wrong, so that it's unfair for you to attack them. It's not okay.
Than anything, and I do see a future with you.
Chris, I really care about you. All I know is I want to be with you.
I do want to be with you, and I don't want you to ever think otherwise. I've this whole time pictured us walking out of here together.
So the music is tipping me off that this doesn't go well for Johnie, or the editors are trying to screw with my brain. But even the way that his body language and the words he's using, I don't know, it almost sounds like he's heading into saying something like, I'm not ready to propose, but I would love to date you afterwards, is what it seems to be. And that would be the smart move, by the way.
To find my wife, and at one point I thought that I had.
Trouble is washing over.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's the smart move. I was curious though to see them after the pods, how that would have worked out, and maybe now that the Zach Bliss situation happened, that broke from the whole script thing, that maybe they should. I mean, if they allow that sort of thing, maybe they date after the pods outside of the system of Love Is Blind, and you sort of see how they do together. But yeah, that's the smart move. I mean, he'd be really dumb to just be like, "Yep, proposal. Let's do this thing." I'm totally sure that this is going to work out. That'd be dumb that he would believe that. So, not to say that they won't work out in the future, just not in this format.
The correct women, and I've always given everything of me to that relationship.
The waves might pull us under.
I really need to be selfish today and worry about myself and choose someone who...
Ironically, this could make Johnie actually fall in love with him, because if her history is the way that she talks about it, this withholding of his affection could actually trigger some reenactment that engages what she interprets as intense love, but is really a compulsion to recreate through protective identification. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.